Hi, and welcome to another episode of Family Fun Force Podcast. I'm Jess,
I'm Matt.
and today we are reviewing Kerbal Space Program.
Snack program.
Kerbal Space Program is rated E for everyone, and that's all I got on it. There are no warnings for anything, even though there technically can be some death in this game. Anyways, available on PC, PS4, and Xbox One. This is a single player game. It is a physics simulation sandbox. It is rated on Metacritic 88 on PC and an average of 76 for PS4 and Xbox One. Get you a little synopsis. In Kerbal Space Program, take charge of the space program for the alien race known as the Kerbals. You have access to an array of parts to assemble fully functional spacecraft that fly, or don't, based on realistic aerodynamic and orbital physics. Launch your Kerbal crew into orbit and beyond while keeping them alive to explore moons and planets in the Kerbal solar system. Construction based. I'm gonna have to redo the last sentence.
hmm By the way, there's no death in Kerbal.
No? What happens when it catches fire?
They go MIA.
Okay. Uh, Launch your Kerbal crew into orbit and beyond while keeping them alive to explore moons and planets in the Kerbal solar system, constructing bases and space stations to expand the reach of your expedition. All right, Matt, what you got for us?
Well, Kerbal was developed by Squad, a Mexico-based web developer who had never made a game. And a little fun story behind it: one of their employees went to upper management asking if they would fund his game that he was developing on the side, and they agreed. And that became Kerbal Space Program. It was ported to several consoles by Blitworks, and it was published by Private Division, who've also published The Outer Wilds, Disintegration, and they're working on publishing Kerbal Space Program 2, expected out this year.
Okay, how's the gameplay, Matt?
In Kerbal Space Program, you build rockets out of modular rocket components, sort of like Lego bricks. You then fly the rockets that you designed in a scale solar system, the Kerbal system. While you're flying these rockets around the solar system, you must gather science points by using scientific devices throughout the solar system. I'd say about half of these devices are real devices, and they give you semi-accurate information. So obviously, the Kerbal Space System is not real, but the values on the planets are all based off planets from our solar system, which we'll talk about later. And when you use science equipment, it gives you values based roughly on our real world counterparts. So you gather the science. You also train your pilots, engineers, and scientists, who are the little green Kerbals. As they get trained, they become better at performing their tasks, and they can do additional things, like pilots can learn how to fly the ship themselves so that you don't have to steer it with the keyboard. You can ask the pilot to steer towards specific points. Engineers gain the abilities to repair things. At first, they can only repack parachutes, but eventually they can fix broken components and even build new ships in space. That's actually new. That update came out last month. Scientists get the ability to clean and reuse scientific equipment. So if you have something like the goo container, which can normally only be opened once, a scientist is able to clean out the old goop and install new goop so that you can run the experiment multiple times. Throughout all this, you also earn money to upgrade your space center or build bigger rockets. You can earn money by taking on missions that you can get from your space center's buildings. Each building in the space center can be upgraded multiple times. You have like your mission control that companies on the Kerbal planet will ask you to do things, often involving using rocket parts, crashing, breaking, or experimenting with them. There's the vehicle assembly building where you build the big rockets, but you have to pay money to make it bigger to build really giant rockets. There's a space plane hangar where you can actually build perfectly normal planes and that never go to space, or you can build them that go to space. That's up to you. There's lots to explore on Kerbal, and every planet has multiple biomes, multiple locations, multiple Easter eggs that are very hard to find, but they're really rewarding when you do. All this comes together, but the most important thing that you do in Space Program is you crash rockets.
Sorry, did you say crash rockets?
Crash rockets, yeah.
I think you're supposed to not crash them.
Well, that's the thing.
It's Kerbal Space Program, not Kerbal Smash Program.
Well, you're right. It's not in the name, but this game relies very heavily on you learning from your mistakes, which we'll probably get talking about a lot.
I don't
so,
know if anyone knows me. I don't learn from my mistakes.
so Jessica, what are things that adults would enjoy about Kerbal Space Program?
Can I ask you a question first?
What's that?
The overview you just gave, which game mode is that?
I kind of talked about all three game modes. So yeah, there are three distinct game modes. The first game mode is the campaign game mode. That's where you must collect science points as well as money. If you run out of money, it's like a soft game over because you can't build anything or do anything. If you don't collect science, you're unable to unlock more advanced rocket parts to build bigger rockets. There is also the science game mode where you have unlimited money, uh, but you have limited science points, and the goal there is to build whatever you need without worrying about running out of money or losing Kerbals permanently. And instead, you just go around and you collect the science to unlock better rocket parts, which is a much more forgiving game mode. And then there's also the last one, the sandbox game mode, where there are no restrictions on your rocket or Kerbal quantities, so you can build the biggest rocket you can imagine, and you can throw as many Kerbals as you want on it, and it doesn't matter if the rocket explodes because all the Kerbals will respawn. And you can build test things out in the sandbox mode before you commit them to your campaigns. That way you know your rocket works before you put a lot of money into stuff. Three game modes. There's also challenge modes. The challenges are specific scenarios, such as lands this space plane that spawns in reentry with zero fuel, and you just have to guide it back down to the runway. There's also like land on the mun. There's takeoffing into orbit. There's rendezvous with a satellite. There's recover an asteroid. All these scenarios are built in so that you can practice game mechanics without having to build and design everything yourself first. You can use the stock vehicles as a stepping stone to learn how to play the game. Still requires a lot of learning though.
All right. I just thought it'd be a good idea to cover those before I got into anything because I mentioned the game modes by name and it might be confusing if they weren't already covered. So cool. Thanks. For adults, this is a cool physics-based simulator that is easy to start but difficult to master. It offers tutorials, but the best route for success is research online to figure out what to do if you don't have prior knowledge on flight/space travel. What did you think for adults?
Yeah, adults, this is an opportunity for you to actually learn rocket science. Words like delta V, thrusts, apoapsy, periapsy, orbital encounters, all that stuff that sounds really foreign. It's actually, a lot of it's rooted in simple concepts, and this is a game that would give you the opportunity to learn things you probably would never learn before. And you learn things like why is Voyager 1 60 years old but still technically inside the solar system? And why is it so hard to control rovers on Mars? And why does it sometimes take several weeks and other times several months to reach Mars? All these questions are things that you'll explore through Kerbal. Uh, Lots of time. There's lots of missions that give you smaller goals to accomplish, especially in the career modes or the science mode. Like the science mode, I think is a really good one because it's just like you have all this money, you can build whatever you want. You just need to collect more science to get cooler stuff. So you quickly learn that, oh, you can actually explore Kerbal, the starting planet itself, and it has a lot of things very similar to Earth. It has lots of different biomes and different continents. And if you go to each location, you can get more and more science, and you learn more about stuff And as I mentioned before, the values are based off real Earth values. So if you're in the Kerbal Desert, that's very similar to the Sahara Desert, you'll see that it's very low humidity, very high temperatures. At night, it gets very cold. All that's in the game. So you can learn some cool stuff. It gives you like short goals to work towards, or very complex goals like build a space station. That's a thing and a half. Also, you can build and crash stuff because I like building airplanes and I like crashing airplanes. Both are fun to me. Jessica, what do you think kids enjoy?
For kids, I think this is a cute sandbox game where you could spend the whole time just literally blowing up rockets, or you could try to enter space. It isn't violent, and the tutorials give a start on learning how to build rockets for success. Um, I said this is E for everyone. There weren't really any listings for ratings, but it's really not graphic. When the rockets blow up, it's just the rocket. You don't see
Yeah,
anything
the Kerbals smile
bad.
all the way to their death. They're perfectly happy, exploding in a fiery ball of rocket bits and Kerbal bits. And when Kerbals die, they just kind of go poof. Again, Kerbals technically don't die. If a Kerbal is caught in an explosion or falls out of a rocket and smashes into the ground, they go pop, and the Space Center actually lists them as missing in action.
So, Matt, what do you think this is good for kids?
I think kids will like the Kerbals. They're hilarious to watch. They have cute animations for most things. If you are running around in a low gravity environment and the Kerbal bumps something, they often fall over and they flop around, and it's kind of cute looking. And then they stand up by like hopping. It's really adorable. The sandbox mode lets you build and crash anything. Kids like just building rockets and flinging them at things. There's lots of stuff to attempt around the Space Center that's easy to reach. I know there used to be challenges on YouTube all the time of people trying to fly as fast as possible under a little bridge on one of the buildings. Small stuff like that that's easy to achieve but difficult to master. It's good for kids, and the detailed editor that lets you just create insane vehicles that you'd probably never see in real life. But I don't know, Elon Musk has proven us wrong about that. He has some insane ideas.
I don't want to talk about that.
But yeah, so just some of the crazy stuff you can build in this game, and it's all rooted in real physics and um, encourages kids to learn. Or some things you didn't like, Jess?
Why? Why you like this? I had a thought and now it's gone. I personally really enjoyed the Kerbal themselves, because they are super cute, as Matt already mentioned. The setup, the gameplay, and how realistic it appears, pretty awesome too. Coming from no knowledge of flight, I feel like continue to play could teach me something, but I was occupied with just sending rockets up to see if I could get them to come back safely, without exploding. I think I caught fire about twice. I did also like that if I didn't want to mess with money as an issue, I could just take the science route and earn parts through tests or do sandbox and have everything available. I kind of like doing the science option. I like messing with goo. Uh, I actually just placed the science version. What? Yeah, I just did the science version on my save. I do also like how you can save and export to Steam your ships or import and try somebody else's. I think that's cool for somebody to figure out how to do something by viewing somebody else's previous work. I do also like how, as Matt mentioned, the parts just snap together. You don't really have to like do anything special to them. It has a connector point that it shows you and highlights green when it's good to snap and red when you're not lined up. It's pretty simple to understand how to put stuff together. Everything's shown right there in front of you, including the staging explains that when you do tutorials, but the imagery is right there so you know exactly what's going on with it. What did you like, Matt, since you've booked I don't know how many hours into this game? Tell the
Well,
audience how many hours.
so the funny thing is my Steam isn't going to give me a realistic explanation of the amount of hours because it only says I have 84 hours. But my brother and I bought this game back when it first came out in 2011, and that was before it was on Steam. So the sheer number of hours I actually have in this game are not documented. If I had to guess, it's probably close to 3,000
Did you say 3,000?
at least.
Jesus.
So I fell in love with this game. It was one of the first vehicle sandboxes that like really let you do anything. Because there had been lots of vehicle builders in the past, but they were all like very narrow focused. This is the first one where it gave you a whole planet and it was just like, yeah, build a rocket or whatever. And of those 3,000 hours, I would say a good two-thirds of them I wasn't building rockets or a vehicle that ever intended to go into space. A lot of airplanes, a lot of cars. Me and my brother used to always come up with like little competitions. At one point, we came up with a way to play multiplayer where we would share the save file back and forth, and we'd each take a turn where you were allowed to launch one vehicle or perform one maneuver with one vehicle, and we would launch these ridiculously large frigates, for lack of a better term, that we had loaded up with weapons that were all created in the game. And the game doesn't support weapons. Like, you can't put a gun on a rocket. So you had to build a way to mount and detach and control a missile all from scratch. And we did. And we would go back and forth and try to knock each other's big spaceships out of space by blowing them up and stuff. I am curious, Jess. So you did mention. Do you think you could describe what staging on a rocket is?
The process in which you use up fuel and then eject that to get out of atmosphere
So why would you eject a part of a rocket?
to decrease the weight so you can get through atmosphere? Why do I feel like I'm being quizzed
I
right now?
guess you are a little bit.
Am I right? Did you want
Yeah.
to explain it better?
I mean, you got it.
What's your reasoning for questioning me to see if I like learned anything?
Yeah, to prove to the audience that you're learning about rockets, because yeah, as rockets launch, they're too heavy to get out of space on the engines and fuel that they have. So you have to discard fuel and engines and mass as you go up. So you build your rocket in stages so that you can put a lot of really heavy boosters on the bottom. That'll get you up really high so you can have lighter weight boosters up top. And those lighter weight boosters might be better at flying in space. And the heavy boosters are probably better at flying near the ground because, atmosphere changes and you'll be going faster, so you need to be able to throw more thrust, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
All stuff
because
that you learn
gravity.
because gravity.
Gravity's not your friend in this case.
Gravity
It wa-
can be your
it wants
friend.
to bring you back down. Well, it's your friend once you're orbiting,
Yeah.
but until then, it's not your friend. It's working against you.
So, Jessica, what were some things you didn't like?
Some things that were not as enjoyable were, although the tutorials are thorough, they are way too much text to read and retain. I don't think kids want to read nearly that much text. I know I didn't. There's also a lot to take in information wise, so if you don't have someone to help you or don't want to watch videos online, you might have a hard time. As Matt mentioned, did you mention this already about looking up stuff online? Or did I
I
just read your
probably
screen and remember?
probably mentioned it in passing.
Like if you don't already have a previous interest in aerodynamics and stuff and you have no idea what you're going into like me, like you kind of have to get educated. If you're not interested in doing outside research, don't play this game. But I don't think I'd recommend this game for kids under 10 unless they're the type of kid who is fine just blowing up stuff. Success does not come easily if you do not want to make it to the mud without previous knowledge. I don't think I had any glitching issues with this game, so that
Lucky
was
you.
fine. I don't have mods installed, so that may have something to do with it, Matthew.
I think you haven't met the Kraken because you weren't building complex rockets yet.
Kraken? Question mark.
The Kraken.
Is there something in the ocean that devours me?
No, it's something in space that devours your rockets.
Oh well, yeah, I didn't make it very far in space. Anyways,
It's not a real creature.
an idea.
It's what we call what happens when the physics of the game break down because you're doing something stupid.
Oh well, okay. Yeah, my only other complaint would be that on PC you can't use a controller. I mean, yeah, this game is a bit complicated, so you want to be using a keyboard and mouse, but for people like me who are terrible with using keyboard and mouse because I can't remember all the buttons very well, it kind of sucks not being able to use a controller. So if you play on PS4 and Xbox One, you're good, but if you play on PC, you can't use a controller at all.
So you can use controllers, but I
Live.
don't think you can use them to assemble vehicles.
Well, I didn't have mine pop up at any point for me, so I don't know.
Because to use a controller, you have to manually bind your own keys and your own
Yeah,
stuff.
that's too much work. Okay, Matt, what did you not like about this game you've put 3,000 hours into?
So I agree with Jessica. This game is extraordinarily difficult. Since I played it from the very beginning, it was even more so. They did not used to have tutorials. They did not used to have scenarios or pre-built rockets. So I had to learn from YouTube mostly. And if it wasn't for channels like Scott Manley, shameless plug, go watch Scott Manley if you have an interest in space stuff. He does a marvelous job. I would never have succeeded in this game. The game doesn't really hold your hand. Even now with the better tutorials, it kind of still just boots you out there, and it wants you to play and experiment to learn. But some stuff is very difficult to grasp. Like to get to the mun for the first time, it's difficult to realize that you need to fly in front of the mun by almost a third of its orbit because of the amount of time it takes to get to it. So you have to like point yourself to meet the mun way further than you would think you would need to, because in space you're going fast because you're close to Kerbin, but the further away from the Kerbin you are, the slower you are, and eventually you kind of fall into the mun. You're not going to blast in a straight line towards it because you don't have enough fuel to do that. All these things are really difficult to learn just intuitively. And if you're not willing to put in outside research or watch videos or do the tutorials, you're never going to figure this stuff out on your own. Other than that, I don't have any complaints about this game.
Okay. You said you'd go back and cover how the planets relate to the planets in our solar system. Do you want to
Sure.
do that real quick?
Okay. So, really fast, the sun at the center of the Kerbin's called the sun. Um, I do believe everything from here on out holds to be about 1/10 scale of Earth's solar system. So going in order, there's the planet Moho, which is a stand-in for our planet Mercury, the closest to the sun. Following Moho, there is Eve, which is the stand-in for Venus. Eve has a single moon that's always in your way. I don't think Venus has a moon.
No, I don't think it does.
Yeah. Next up is Kerbin, which is a stand-in for Earth, and it's almost perfectly 1/10 scale, but it has the same gravity as Earth, which might make it a little weird for people who are familiar with NASA missions, because you're going to be looking at numbers that might not make sense if you follow actual missions, but generally 1/10 scale should get you if you have any familiarity. Also, Kerbin has two moons. The first is the Mun, Mun, which is the stand-in for Earth's moon, and then there's a second moon called Minmus, often described as the ball of ice cream that floats further out than the Mun,
Hmm.
because it does look like some mint ice cream. It that ironically, it's actually easier to get to and land on Minmus than it is the Mun. But you might find that the Mun kind of shields you from it. But it takes a smaller rocket and it's easier to land on. Following Kerbin is Duna. Duna is the stand in for Mars. They're very similar. They have a small atmosphere. Duna's a bit colder and has more snow than Mars does. And yes, Mars has snow. Well, at least snowy ice. Duna has one moon. I might be wrong, where Mars has two. I think they're about the same size though. The next out is the planet Jewel, which is the stand-in for Jupiter. It's the only gas giant in Kerbin, and it has 6 moons, I believe, all amazingly different. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about them because there's so many, but uh, it's worthwhile to learn to get a rocket that can go all the way out to to Jewel just to see the moons. And there might even be one moon that you can maybe take your helmets off on. Might be worth checking out.
That's
Yeah.
the sound you're making because you'll be gasping forever without your helmet on.
Yeah, I would suggest not taking your helmet off most of the time. It is an option at all times. Don't do it unless you're pretty positive it won't have negative consequences, because it usually has negative consequences. Outside of Jewel, we skipped several planets. Jewel is the only gas giant in Kerbin, whereas Earth solar system has 4 gas giants. The next planet out is Elu, which is Kerbin's Pluto. I think Kerbin's Elu is actually a planet, though, where Pluto is a dwarf planet. I'm sorry. If that upsets some people.
Pluto, like our sun. It's always like, don't forget Pluto.
Yeah.
Don't forget Pluto.
For anyone who's upset about Pluto, first of all, remember Pluto wasn't discovered until like 1960 something. And then they reclassified it in 2008 because it turns out Pluto doesn't have its own orbit. It's fighting a bunch of other stuff for its orbit. So that's why it's not a planet.
So if y'all want to be considered a planet, you got to have your own orbit.
Yeah, you gotta have your own orbit. You gotta be the biggest thing on your orbit. If you're not, then you're not a planet.
All right.
So that's the Kerbin system.
Any other tidbits you'd like to interject into this lovely episode?
I think I covered most everything.
Okay.
If I was gonna like give a how-to article, it would get, it's a little beyond our scope.
I would like to add that I decided to stream KSP only about for 20, 30 minutes because I'd already been streaming Among Us for 2.5 hours. But I streamed a little bit of me playing KSP because I wanted to play a bit more before doing the review. And, the internet can be a very harsh place, especially for people who don't know what they're doing. But I had some people join my chat who were super friendly and like weren't negative on me. And I'm just like, hey, look, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to get in the atmosphere, and that's it. And the one guy was going on about how he's played 1,200 hours, and like I'm thinking, man, you played the game this much. Why are you watching other people play the game? But he was pretty chill. So I just like to say, my very small experience with people in the game. What's the word I'm looking for here?
Well, space is like the open ocean. You might not all be on the same team, but when you're out there in the void, you got to be helpful. Most KSP players are willing to teach you what they know, and they love failing together. They love seeing rockets explode because it's hilarious.
So if you decide to play this game and you want help, you can always stream on Twitch and maybe somebody will help
Mm-hmm.
you. I won't promise you won't have people be mean to you about it, but you could. And yeah, definitely look up YouTube videos if you want to play because there's a lot. It's a very steep learning curve. And tutorials were somewhat effective because I don't retain information that well without like continued use. So doing one tutorial did not retain much for me, and especially because I'm sitting there reading all this text, it I remember the text but not what I was supposed to be doing with the rocket. So all right. So,
Point
in
prograde
conclusion,
and throttle to full.
yeah, that was what I forgot. I remembered everything except throttle, and I'm like, I'm hitting spacebar, but nothing's happening. Yeah, because I didn't throttle. I know now. Uh, anyways, if you like this title or are looking for something similar to it, more space simulators include Mars Horizon. If you want a space game for kids, Starlink Battle Atlas. I haven't personally played either of those games, but I know of them and they have been recommended to me.
So Mars Horizons is more like a turn-based strategy where you take existing rocket components in a real-world setting, and it kind of plays it like a role-playing game. based off different factors, whether or not missions are successful. What was the other game?
You haven't played Starlink. Starlink is a lot like Skylanders or Disney Infinity, where it uses toys, but in this case, you don't have to use toys to play the game. You can actually just buy the game digitally. Runs like $60 normally, but you can get it on sale sometimes. But it's just like an open world exploration game, and you're actually traveling through space. But like, it's popular because the Switch version comes with Star Fox and his ship. So I've got a friend who's played it, and I've been thinking about getting it. So maybe in the future I'll review it. Um, because our son is obsessed with space, and I want something that's kid friendly. And my friend was telling me that a 3-year-old could probably handle playing this game. So I would also say if you have a toddler who's just interested in space, a app that I downloaded on my phone is called Star Walk Kids 2. It goes through all the planets and some other celestial bodies, including comets and such, and like has information on each one you have to go through in sequential order. And then it has a quiz where the kids have to answer questions and then they watch videos and stuff. And my son loves playing it every time. Every Saturday, he's like, Mom, I want to look at planets on your phone. Give me your phone. I want to look at planets. And this is the app he wants. So, other than that, Kerbal Space Program 2, as Matt has mentioned, has been announced. I saw it was releasing sometime in 2022. Promises new animated tutorials, improved UI, and fully revamped assembly and flight instructions, which allow both experienced and novice players to quickly put their creativity to the test without sacrificing any of the challenge from the original game, as well as multiplayer. So it looks like the big things that were issues for this game being tutorials and no multiplayer are going to be fixed in the second game. So it's pretty cool. What do you think, Matt? Are
Yeah,
good similar titles?
I'm not gonna touch on Kerbal 2. The amount of new things that they've been talking about and additions and fixes. If you're interested in Kerbal, I would play Kerbal now and just wait for Kerbal 2 because I imagine it's gonna get delayed again.
Well,
But
yeah,
Kerbal,
2022 is still a year out.
yeah, Kerbal 2 looks amazing. But if you want similar titles you can play now, Simple Rockets 1 is a two-dimensional version. It's very similar, building rockets, launching them. There's also the sequel, Simple Rockets 2, which is still in development, which is a 3D version of the Simple Rockets. It's like Kerbal, it's less cutesy, more realistic, but it's also slightly more advanced editor. Might intrigue people who are finished with Kerbal and want something else, but it's not nearly as deep. If you like building vehicles but don't care too much about space, a great vehicle builder I enjoy playing is Stormworks Build and Rescue, where its primary focus is on boats. And it's not too often that you see boat games, but this one makes boats fun and realistic. And it's voxel building, not like Lego parts. So it's a little bit more complex. If you like Minecraft, you're familiar with voxels. Um, but yeah, Stormworks is really fun. It's a lot more difficult. You have to be a lot more fine grained in your details. Like in Kerbal, you could just put a cockpit on a rocket, and that cockpit has everything you need to run the rocket. But in Stormworks, you need to build every button inside the cockpit and wire it to what it's supposed to do. So it's a lot more complex. If Kerbal is too simple, check out Stormworks. If you like space but you don't like building vehicles, I would suggest you check out Outer Wilds, which is an RPG set in space, but it has realistic space physics, but not real. It's not a game rooted in realism. The orbital mechanics are realistic, but the game itself is a unique experience, and I suggest you check that out. It's a very interesting story and very unique. Any other thoughts?
Nope, that pretty much covers all my feelings on KSP. Personal rating, not my thing, but I'd recommend it. What do you think? This is a dumb question.
I've played this game too much. I'm
If you want
too
to go to space,
old.
play this game.
What was that?
If you want to go to space, play this game.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, don't they use this for training sims in NASA or some crap?
No. Oh my god,
Doesn't
no.
NASA recommend playing one game?
So the joke is that during several space launches, during the waiting periods, There have been pictures of NASA members with Kerbal open at their computers to pass the time.
All right. Find us on Facebook via Family Fun Force. Join our Family Fun Force pod group and find us at Twitter at.
At ForcePod.
We usually post a link for our Discord. Please join us on there to chat with us, possibly join up on games. We've been trying to do big groups for Among Us every once in a while. I'd like to make it a habit to do it once a weekend, but I don't know if I can promise that. So if anybody joins, the Discord or our podcast group and is like, hey, I want to play Among Us or another like group PC game, I'll post a poll and we can get a date set up. It's cool to do stuff like that. Super fun. Matt just compiled a short video of some clips from us
Uh,
playing Among Us,
Rated 16 and up.
rated 16 and up because I language. So what's your YouTube,
Yes.
Mr. Universe guy?
MR Universe Guy. Actually, it's not Mr., it's MR.
Okay, sorry.
MR
MR
Universe
Universe
Guy.
guy.
That's my YouTube. Yeah, it might be a little strange to you guys because I'm a chicken on that, which is something I like to talk. I have been streaming a lot recently. Turns out I lost my job and I turned into a chicken and I can't figure out how to come back. So I've been streaming, playing games. And if you join the Discord, you're likely to see me playing games, and I welcome people to come play with me if it's multiplayer in a game that interests you. I also ask people about what games they like to see. So hanging out in Discord is a good place to go. Also, you can talk to a chicken if you've never done that before.
Also, Matt still has 3 copies of Among Us. So, if anyone joins the Discord ASAP after this episode releases or joins the podcast group on Facebook and is like, hey, I want to play Among Us with you guys. Can I get a code? We'll see
Yeah.
what we can make happen.
Spare Among Us codes if you happen to ask me and I'm in a good mood. There's no guarantees on those codes. It's just you gotta be nice and I gotta be in a good mood, but I have codes.
But yeah, I love playing Among Us. It's not a difficult game if you haven't already tried it. It was free. I don't know if it's still free on phone, but we have codes for PC. If you want to check out my Twitch, I currently have it disabled to save videos because I swear too much and I'm not editing right now. So I don't know if I'm going to start saving videos soon, but occasionally I stream. I stream drawing stuff and playing stuff like Among Us, Titanfall. Like I said, I streamed a bit of playing KSP. Um, I do plan on streaming the new game we are reviewing for next month, which I will say in just a second. So definitely check me out. I am dragon underscore of underscore rampage.
I forgot to post my Twitter or my Twitch handle. Yeah, my Twitch handle is mr underscore universe underscore guy. I also have my personal Twitter where I'm way more active than on the Family Fun Force podcast Twitter, and that is at mr universe guy. So
We are still waiting on reviews.
please review us. It would
Please
be
send us
wonderful to get reviews.
emails. Give us game
You could
recommendations to
also
review.
email us. Yeah, I said yes. You could also email us.
Yeah. Something. We need to know what you guys want in this next year, 2021.
I've been really impressed with you guys coming out to listen to us. Thank you for that. But we want to hear back from you. Please leave us reviews. If you
Engage.
leave us a 5-star review, we'll at the very least say your name, if not read your review, if it's
Yeah.
glowing and nice, right here on the podcast.
I'll read a review if it's 5 stars. I'll read it in a character voice.
You heard it. Just go read it in a character
I'll
voice.
read it in a character voice. I don't care. It'll probably be really poor, but I'll do it. Okay, Matt, so what's our next title?
Spooky paper bag boy.
Spooky Paper Bag Boy. Our next title is Little Nightmares 2. This is probably the closest to a quote unquote new release we'll have since our original title, Goose Game, which we plan on revisiting at some point, either in video form or something. Cough, cough.
It's got multiplayer now.
Yes. There is a demo out right now for Little Nightmares 2. If you want to check it out, it releases the 11th of February, so pretty soon. So check out that demo. And like I said, I plan on streaming me playing Little Nightmares 2. So check that out. I will post updates on that in the Facebook group as well as the Discords. Other than that, Peace out.
Bye bye. Anything else from you?
I guess not.
I just wanted to elaborate on it. Do you
Well,
have
I
one?
was gonna elaborate on it, and it's fine.
Do you want to just read your thing, and I can edit mine out?
No, that's all I had. I was just gonna talk more, and it's fine. What do you think for kids this is good for? If you want to join NASA, play Kerbal Space Program. It's a sure way in. It'll get your foot in the door, I
Uh huh.
promise.
Don't make those promises.
Obviously, that's how to get